What is up, everybody? Welcome into Shout, a Buffalo football podcast. I am back in the saddle. Shout out to Brent Axe tagging in for me for the last 2 days. Really appreciate you, brother. Good to be back here with Ryan Talbot on Shout. We have a very, very big episode on tap for today. A lot of observations to get to and to some big breaking news over the last hour or so around the James Cook situation. More injuries, of course, when it comes to the Bills. It feels like we're talking about more and more of those every single day in these post-practice episodes, but it's good to be back. What's up, Ryan?
Hey, not too much. Excited to have you back. Big thanks to Brent, though, for helping out those last 2 days. Glad you're here, though, and back in your dorm room.
I am back in my dorm room, and I was flying this morning, getting from Buffalo to Rochester. And, man, the best way to travel, in my opinion, is if you can get on Amtrak. And they have stops from Buffalo all the way to New York City, talking about Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Schenectady, Albany, Poughkeepsie, and so many more. The comfort is next level. No middle seats, plenty of leg room and reclining seats. Free Wi-Fi on every single train. No baggage fees either. Kids ride for 50% off and their senior discounts as well. Riding Amtrak is an experience, a fun and relaxing way to get to your destination. All right, Ryan, we thought that we got to our destination with James Cook reporting for training camp, being a part of the team for the first week of practice. We get there today. He is not participating after Sean McDermott goes through a laundry list of injuries. He was in kind of a white tracksuit. Had a number 4 James Cook Scully cap on. And when he was asked about it after practice, he said why he wasn't practicing. He simply said the word business. And, it's interesting because over the last couple of weeks and months, as we've kind of talked about the James Cook situation, he's been very he's been very vocal on social media about the number that he wants. It was my understanding that the two sides just weren't very close on a new deal. I think Brandon Beane actually said this 2 months ago as they were kind of going through the process. Doesn't like to negotiate within the media, but he said that two sides just weren't very close. Reportedly today from Tom Pelissero of NFL Network, he says it's his understanding that at least recently the two sides haven't been very far apart. So you start to connect the dots and think about why would James Cook want to sit out practice today. You'll wonder if maybe there is some headway being made on a potential deal. What is your observation on James Cook not practicing today and what it potentially means?
Yeah, it's curious because he had been a full participant in mandatory minicamp up until this point. He was at the scrimmage on Friday, signing autographs, like nothing out of the ordinary in terms of what we've heard from him about being a leader, being here, showing his teammates that he's ready for the season. And then today it's just business and he's not there. So if you're optimistic as a Bills fan, you're probably hoping this means you're getting to the finish line, Matt. And there's a few T's to cross and I's to dot. I guess no I's in James Cook, but somewhere in that deal there might be. And maybe they're getting close to finalizing it. And he just wants to make sure it's all said and done before he gets back out there on the practice field. The other part could be if you, I don't want to say more realistic, but maybe you're sitting there saying, I showed up, I did mandatory minicamp, I've been here, and no talks have progressed since that point or gotten any closer to getting a deal done. So now maybe it's a hold-in situation. I think that the longer this goes on without a new deal being signed or until we hear something from the team, because the team didn't want to comment on it, rightfully so, we're just kind of in limbo wondering what this means. It could honestly mean either side because, as you mentioned, Pelissero today on that quick hit, mentioning that he's heard they were somewhat close, that leads you to believe maybe they are getting or approaching the finish line.
And I think if you take the whole picture, starting from the end of last season to today, James Cook, for as much as was made about the commentary around the $15 million per season mark and the very, very public stance on wanting a new contract, at every stage of this thing, I've never felt from the Bills side that anything happened to make this relationship deteriorate in any way. And I think what we've seen, to your point, from James Cook over the last couple of weeks and months has gone a long way to maybe stoke the flames of a potential new contract. And so I'm wondering if he shows up, gets back around the team, gets back around the everybody at One Bills Drive in Rochester, of course, whatever you want to call the street here. What's the street? East Avenue? Is that what it is?
I believe it is. Yeah. East Ave.
I'm blanking on the street, whatever it is here over here at St. John Fisher. You wonder if they just get back in the building, maybe renew talks. Maybe the agent shows up for a day of practice and, shooting the breeze with Brandon Beane. The Bills didn't have any comment, but I don't get the sense that this is something the Bills are panicked about, and there's a number of reasons why I think that could be. Number one, like I've said all summer, they believe in Ray Davis, not only Ray Davis, but like Ty Johnson. I have them, slated for later in the show, but it was a heavy running day again today. There was a lot of action. The Bills were in full pads, and I thought Ray Davis had a really nice day. One of the best plays of the day, though, came from Ty Johnson, who took what I believe was a 65-yard touchdown down the right sideline. It was Joe Andreessen who ended up being in coverage on the play. But there is playmaking in this running backs room, and I think James Cook is the best running back on the roster currently. But I don't think that if Ray Davis and Ty Johnson were your two running backs, the Bills couldn't still be as productive as an offense. They might have to reimagine things a little bit. It'll be an uptick in terms of a role for Ray Davis, but I think that they believe in those guys. But I also think that they believe in James Cook, and I'm not ruling out them getting a deal done before the start of the season. People asked me over the last couple of weeks, do I think the Bills will get a deal done with James Cook before the season? And I said no. I said it made the most sense to let him really truly go and test free agency, see what his value is next offseason. But if they come to a number where, all right, this is in the neighborhood of what you're comfortable with, he's a really good player. There's not as much tread on the tires as most running backs his age because of how few carries he had in college and touches. It wouldn't surprise me if they end up getting something done.
And he hasn't had a crazy workload in the pros either. So he is very, very fresh in terms of the workload and carries. Yeah, Brandon Beane said a few weeks ago about a potential deal. It's about fitting the money in and knowing that a few years down the road, there's going to be other players that you need to re-sign or extend. And it's a big puzzle, and you don't always know how much you're going to get the following year, how much the cap's going to go up, what players are going to outperform their deals and be looking for new deals themselves. So it's a very tough job from that perspective. I get the frustration if you're James Cook coming off of a season where you scored 18 touchdowns, 1,000 on the ground. But the Bills are also probably somewhat hesitant because before that, his career high in touchdowns in a season was 6 total. So, kind of wants to prove it. More likely the team show that you can do it again. And this is kind of where it leads to now. If the Bills really wanted to prevent this from being a storyline today, they could have said it was a vet rest day for him at the beginning of practice. Maybe they weren't aware of what was going to happen, or maybe this is going to take a few days and, you're not going to have a vet rest for 3 days out of 4 in a row here. So who knows? I guess my message would just be buckle up, Bills fans. We're all going to kind of find out together here what's going on.
Yeah, it's an interesting way that it all played out because it was such a laundry list of injuries that Sean McDermott went over, and James Cook obviously didn't come up. And it's also, you got to be careful with how you frame something like that. If it's not true, if Cook's on the sideline, he's asked about this and he says the business word over and over again. Now that creates a completely different storyline. The real interesting part about this, and I think somebody mentioned in the comments, is tracking this over the course of Hard Knocks, right? Because this is something that's going to take center stage on the show. We'll see how it plays out. I don't think this, even if it's a hold-in situation, that it has the potential to leak into the season. But hey, listen, never say never. These deals can be very, very complicated to figure out depending on how far apart. I mean, this is a report from one reporter. I've not seen that before. So this is the first time we're hearing of this. And this has been a storyline since May. So it'll be interesting to see how it kind of plays out here.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, Cook is very valuable to this team. He is a home run hitter. Anytime he touches the ball, he can take it the distance. He has the best speed of any of the backs in this room. But to your point, Ray Davis showed on Thursday when he squeezed through a tight window, took a ball 20, 25 yards for a touchdown at practice and ripped off multiple big runs this summer. He's more than capable. He showed he was capable as a receiver last year. And we know how much this team loves Ty Johnson and what he can do both running and catching the ball.
We are so excited, Ryan. The week is finally here. We're on the eve of the week, I should say, where the Bills close up training camp. So sad to end another run through St. John Fisher University. We love our time here in Pittsburgh, but we get to close it down in style. We will be at Dorado on August 7th, this Thursday night at 5:30 p.m. It'll be our final post-training camp practice episode, and we are going to dive into not only our thoughts on the final day of practice, but our overarching training camp thoughts. We'll bring on Bills fans if you want to come out and hang out. Wingnutz will be up. They will have their cart here. They'll be making wings. I'd imagine they're going to start sometime around 1 p.m. and they're going to go until they run out of wings, Ryan. So it's going to be an awesome event to close down training camp. We can't wait.
Yeah, and it might not even be until they run out of wings. They ran out a few years ago, and then they went to the local supermarket and bought even more. So they're willing to go above and beyond, and obviously Dorado has great food, great drinks too. Come join us out on the patio as we break down the final days of training camp and then look ahead to the preseason and even up to the final roster talk.
All right, so let's stay on the injuries for a moment. I want to get to like we're gonna get crazy and get to our Amtrak Hype Train Player of the Week on day. Oh no, we did one already on Friday, but we're doing another one. I'm gonna have another segment because somebody really impressed me today. Talked to him after practice. We'll get to that in a moment. Khalil Shakir, we learned today on another injury note that he's dealing with a high ankle sprain, and that's something that he's had in the past. He's dealt with it. Sean McDermott kind of downplayed it a little bit, basically said that this is something that, a veteran player, he's super tough. He'll figure it out. But, I'm eyeing the start of the regular season a little over a month away. And This is something I am not rushing Khalil Shakir back from, because to me, you have a bunch of different options that you could play in the slot. Even if you get to the start of the season and you don't feel like he's ready, you don't want to rush Khalil Shakir back, somebody that's so important to what they do, a veteran who's been in this offense the entirety of his career, going to his 5th season. And he doesn't necessarily need these reps as maybe some of the other players on the roster. You want that injury to be as close to 100% as you can get him. So I'm not rushing him back. That high ankle sprain is going to have to be 100% before I even entertain the idea of putting him back on a football field.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously done. He's not going to play in the preseason. You're not going to see him at camp being week to week. And the only downside to this is potentially he could be out for week 1. We don't know how he's going to heal yet. I did see a CBS report listing it as like a 4 to 5 week time frame. So that puts it in an interesting spot. But as you said, if he's not 100%, I'm not playing him week 1 either. As important as that game could potentially be to AFC seeding at the end of the year, it's not worth potentially, a setback for one of your most important offensive players. A safety valve for Josh Allen, a guy that doesn't drop any passes, is just trusted upon in this system so much. So timing of it's not great. You never want to hear high ankle sprain, but he does have a history where he's shown he can bounce back from this, and it hasn't hampered him or caused him any, issues in the regular season. So you just hope that the Bills manage this well, which they have a good track record of doing.
I put out a bunch of videos in the insider text line today of the wide receivers. I mean, good look at Christian Wilkinson, the upstart 5th-year player, UDFA many years ago. He's had stops with 5 different. This is his 5th NFL team that he's played on. Tyrell Shavers is another guy that's going to have an opportunity over the next couple of weeks as preseason games play out. In the slot, though, I think I look more towards like a KJ Hamler, who we talked a lot about at the beginning of training camp, as maybe a potential road to a game day jersey. I think he's going to be on this roster. The Bills have invested in him as a reserve contract player at the beginning of 2024. He has now been almost a year and a half on this roster in some way. And he's had a really good training camp. Like, I'll be interested to talk to Joe Brady next time we get a chance to talk to him and get his perception on what Hamler's done. He had an opportunity for a big splash play today, and it was tough because the pressure was getting dialed up. The Bills were running 2-minute offense. The first team offense was stopped on 4th down both times. A couple plays in there. One, Allen was getting pressure up the gut from, I believe it was Ed Oliver and maybe Rousseau, had to get the ball out and decided to take an extra special chance at the second level. And this is what I'm talking about. These are the plays I love from Josh Allen because it gives us these opportunities to really evaluate guys. And KJ Hamler kind of made a really good move to get some separation, either Benford or White. I can't remember. I have to bring up my notes. He goes and dives to try to make the catch. He can't haul it in. It kind of bounces off his chest pads. And it's one of those plays where Hamler makes that one, keeps the drive going in a 2-minute drill, and everybody starts to get excited about that. And listen, drops are part of the game. He's going to get plenty of opportunities, whether it's with Josh Allen, Mitch Trubisky, or Mike White over the next couple weeks in preseason. And I think that could go a long way to what the Bills want to do at slot if Shakir's not ready.
Yeah, and he has incredible breakaway speed with the ball in his hands. He's made some nice plays this summer, even last summer for KJ Hamler. So it's all about who can make the most of these opportunities, Matt. And you mentioned Christian Wilkerson. I'm not going to sit here and say Wilkerson has any chance of making this final roster, but I think he's made a real case for the practice squad these last few days. You mentioned him having some catches today. I thought he was excellent on Thursday at training camp. Hauled in some passes on Friday at the scrimmage. He's showing sure hands. He's getting some run with the first team. Another player that's making the most of these opportunities, because for some guys, there might not be a path to the 53, but if you can hang around in this practice squad, you don't know when injuries could pop up in season. You're getting a regular salary. You're learning the system more, where he's new to the Bills system. So great opportunities for a lot of these players. When you get to the regular season, the Bills can get creative. They have multiple guys you can play in the slot. I wouldn't hate if they put Keon Coleman in the slot at times, trying to create some mismatches there. A big slot is how a lot of teams or draft analysts viewed him as his best position in this league. So even tinker with that in season. But leading up to that point, a lot of guys on this roster that you can kind of fit in there and see how it goes.
I also, with looking at this wide receiving group, and Nathan's asking about Cole Bishop. We'll get more to him in a second. Steven Gosnell made another play today as well. Challenged the defensive back when he was working against him. I'll get to Gosnell in a minute. I want to pull up the specific note. But Elijah Moore, to me, I don't think he's like the pure fit in at slot corner, because he can do so many other things on the outside. And I think, when he's available and healthy, he moves differently than everybody else. I mentioned the clips that I put out today. I don't know if you were able to watch any of them, but when you're watching routes versus air, like Elijah Moore really pops. And that's saying something when you're going and running a route after KJ Hamler, because of his foot speed. I mean, that he is a really talented, athletic guy. And I think Elijah Moore has a chance to really be something in this offense. Now with Josh Palmer dealing with a groin injury, it's just like there's 4 injuries in the wide receiver room. Caden Prather hasn't practiced in almost a week now, and there's opportunities for a bunch of these guys. But Elijah Moore and KJ Hamler, like, those are the high ceiling guys, former second round picks that, I think Moore has obviously had the more productive career to this point, but both of those guys were drafted in the second round for a reason and will probably be part of the conversation here as we move forward.
And that's all you can ask for, is a veteran, especially coming over to Buffalo in the case of Moore. And Hamler's been here since last year. Opportunities. And now they have 3 big weeks coming up with preseason games to show that they belong, or that they should at the very least be on this practice squad and someone you would consider elevating in a must-need situation. So going to be fun to watch how it all unfolds. We still don't know how the reps are going to go in the preseason with the quarterback play, anything else, but tons of opportunities over those 3 weeks.
All right. Gosnell quickly, one-on-one. They ended practice with one-on-ones today. So Sean McDermott deciding to put everybody through a full practice. And then, oh, by the way, we're going to end it by going one-on-one, defensive back versus wide receiver, D-line versus O-line. So I sent along some of the results of that in the insider text line. Best shout out of all is, if you want to become an inside, there's still plenty of time. 716-528-6727. Get yourself that 2-week free trial, $3.99 a month. After that, if you're a Shout fan, come along for the ride with myself and Ryan Talbot all season long. It doesn't just stop when training camp's over. We're giving analysis. We're answering questions. We're doing Zoom happy hours. We did one of those right before the start of training camp. There's a lot of special perks for less than a cup of coffee per month, $3.99 a month, 716-528-6727. I want to get to the Amtrak, and I know I just ran out. We got a lot to get to here, and I don't want this to go too long. I want to get to the Amtrak Hype Train Player of the Week. Obviously, you handed out a couple of those. I believe it was on Friday or Thursday. I want to add one more to the group, and that's AJ Epinesa, because, like, if you're talking about a guy that's been kind of written off this offseason and somebody that's been often thrown into the Micah Parsons hype, which we could talk about that in a little while as well. Whenever somebody's putting a projected trade for Micah Parsons and the Bills, AJ Epinesa feels like he's just tossed into that thing. And it's interesting because the Bills have obviously addressed their defensive line this offseason, but the biggest acquisitions might not even be the players as much as it is the coaches that have been added into that room. Ryan Nielsen is now the defensive line. I know he's senior assistant. He runs that defensive line room.
Yep.
Okay, number one. Number two, Jason Rebrovich, the assistant defensive line coach to Marcus West. This is a guy that's been in the NFL for many years, a bunch of different iterations, has worked with a ton of NFL players. I saw him working with AJ Epinesa after practice and just going over some of the little details of the technique. And after about 5 minutes of that, Deion Dawkins came over with Epinesa, and they were going over not the splash plays that Epinesa made that he barely wanted to talk about after practice. He wanted to focus in on the 2 run plays where Deion Dawkins beat him and got underneath his pads, was able to kind of just from a tactique perspective win on that one-on-one. And AJ Epinesa was desperate to learn just in that little moment what Deion Dawkins did to win. And one of the things he noticed was that AJ Epinesa was kind of rushing in with his elbows flared out a little bit too far. Once that happens for an offensive lineman, boom, you get your hands underneath, you get underneath the pads, and it helps you to kind of lift them and take them out of the play. And so they're going over the nuances of that off to the side. It's those little things that got me to thinking about how much AJ Epinesa potentially could take a step this year. Like with all of this added knowledge in that room with Nielsen, Rebrovich, obviously Marcus West still there, Joey Bosa coming over, another veteran presence. We might not have seen the ceiling yet of AJ Epinesa, and I'm not even getting to the splash plays that I want to talk about yet.
Yeah, no player has been traded by Bills fans more this offseason than AJ Epinesa, but Epinesa, I was able to ask him a few questions at a presser on Thursday. And the first thing he mentioned as well was this rookie class is the most talented rookie class of D linemen he's been around since entering the league. So you throw in the added competition factor as well. You got to be on your A game now that Landon Jackson is here, and they go out and they add a Michael Hoyt in free agency. And he talked about a second-year player in Javon Solomon. So there's young guys that are fighting for playing time and spots. You have Bosa in the mix now, Greg Rousseau. So he knows he needs to put his best foot forward this season. Then he talked about his personal motivations, entering the last year of his contract, really wanting to show the Bills, show the league that he belongs in this league, that he is a valuable defensive lineman. Talked about how he's gotten better as a run stopper, and he feels some years he's gotten better in that area, worse in that area. Pass rusher, though, he's grown in that area too. So, his mindset is right. He's saying all the right things. And now you upgrade the coaching as well. There's really a lot to like about Epinesa, who's been a solid contributor, around 6 sacks per season. I think he's been excellent in run defense. He was maybe a little bit harder of a self-critique when he was talking about that area of his game. So, yeah, it's not time to write him off yet, despite having a lot of talent in that room.
So the big play happened early in the day, and I think he had a sack at one point against Allen, which should be sack, and they usually let the play blow out, so it's
right.
Finish out before they blow the whistle, and so it's hard to really say whether or not it was officially a sack. Another play, he tipped the ball at the line of scrimmage. Rousseau got his hand on a ball as well. So Allen was having a tough time throwing over, the wall that was the Bills defensive line today. But again, it's like these little plays that AJ Epinesa has a way of making. He picks off Allen, trying to dump it down to Ty Johnson. Nobody blocks him. He reads Allen's eyes. He gets into the backfield, picks the ball off, and runs it back for a touchdown. Like, those are the kind of plays that, I know that they're splash plays and they're, maybe 1 or 2 of those kind of ones per season, but they're important. And I think that AJ Epinesa has a knack for turning the ball over, whether getting his hands on the ball some way. He talked about it, his arm length and the ability to get up into passing lanes. And it was just one of those days where Epinesa shows you what he can be when he is kind of operating in that elite area. He has that as a part of his game, which I think is exciting, but also frustrating for Bills fans because it's almost like you want to see it more than you actually do.
And, this comes with time and experience and playing time in the league. So if he can't get home to the quarterback, he knows to put his hands up when he sees the ball getting thrown, and you can make a play that way. We've seen spurts of this in his career where he has these breakout moments in games. Had a huge game against Kansas City, I want to say 2 years ago, and then he had his ribs injured in that very game, missed some time, and then when he came back, he never really continued to put it together like he had been up until that point. He was having a really decent stretch of games. So he's always been this player where you get those hot streaks from him. Now it's about consistency week in, week out. You need to see that from him, especially in a system where reps could be hard to come by, especially after week 6 once Hoyt gets back in the fold.
I also think that we have to downshift our expectations for, say, like a Landon Jackson.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that the Bills trust AJ Epinesa, right? Like whether or not the production has been at the level that fans have kind of, clamored for. He's somebody that they knows what he needs to do, his responsibilities in the run game, to your point, and somebody that can affect the passer at times. And, when he's healthy, to me, that's when we've seen the highest level of Epinesa. But he's somebody that, again, I just got to give him the nod, a little love, because, he's doing all of the little things, and he's kind of graduated into that veteran status. Like there's young guys in this room now, Landon Jackson, Javon Solomon, Paris Shand, who's had a couple of nice days at camp. Those are the guys now looking up to the AJ Epinesas of the world and how he's been able to kind of build the career that he has for himself. And I don't think he would just be a throw-in. I think that if the Bills were to hypothetically trade for a Micah Parsons, if he's technically part of that deal, I think that the Cowboys, while he's not an elite pass rusher, he'd be somebody that I think they'd be excited about getting back.
Yeah, there's a lot to like about his game. He might not be someone that's a double-digit sack producer, but he's an all-around defensive end. He's a solid contributor, a good depth piece. And then to your point with these younger players like Landon Jackson, they still have to learn on the fly a little bit right now, and that can be difficult. So you're going to want to limit their reps, limit their time on the field, barring injuries. I asked Landon Jackson at the blue and red scrimmage about the speed of the game, and he said, I think it's slowing down, but I'm not really going to know until preseason games, and then you'll get a good feel for it there. Regular season games, even if he's active, how much is he going to play if everyone else in front of him is healthy?
Jim asks, Matt, was your son surprised by his birthday trip? We went to Universal. That's why I was gone for a couple of days. He was. It was, we did a little bit of a reveal the night before, probably like 7:30, and we had a 7 a.m. flight the next morning. So he had 12 hours to prepare for the trip. And it was just an immersive experience in the world of Harry Potter. He started reading the books when he was 4. He's probably read through the series 1 to 7. I don't know, probably a dozen times, maybe more at this point. And it was just cool. Like I've seen all the movies. I've read a lot of the books with him over the years. And so I'm not the biggest Harry Potter fan, but just being there with him and seeing him kind of go through it, it was a really, really special trip. And it was kind of disappointing end a little bit. Epic Universe, which opened in May, they're still working out some kinks. We ended up leaving halfway through the day and went over to Magic Kingdom for the day. Scott says, how many butter beers? I think he probably put down at least 6 in 2 days. So the butter beers were flowing down in Florida, and we were sweating. I was sweating my butt off, Ryan. It was hot.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're a brave man to go to Florida in the middle of the summer with the humidity, with the heat in general. I'm glad you guys had a great time, though.
Couple more things real quick. I want to get in this Micah Parsons thing for a second. Little sidewinder. Probably do or do you want to have our own podcast, an individual podcast on Parsons, maybe tomorrow or something? Or on the
maybe we give them a bigger segment tomorrow or something like that.
Yeah, because we're only almost 30 minutes in, and I got a couple more things to get to. We'll save on the Parsons stuff. I have some thoughts, and we talked about it a little bit with Zach Jones earlier today. But I want to get into pivot here quickly. The defensive line today was, to me, the star of the day as a group. Like, I thought across the board, no matter who you want to talk about, they were really good. Joey Bosa had a rep in one-on-ones where he absolutely just dusted Ryan Vandermark, poor guy. Just showcasing that spin move that we've come to see out of him in LA all these years. He was really good in that department. Didn't participate too much in team drills. But it was across the board, especially on the interior, making things hard on Josh Allen. And to me, the combo that stood out was Larry Ogunjobi and Deion Carter working in tandem together. And this is something that I think is going to start to build some steam here. And obviously it's going to take a little bit of a break when the season starts and Ogunjobi misses 6 games. But if Deion Carter can be that backup one technique and allow Ogunjobi to play his natural position of 3 tech, give TJ Sanders some time to develop over the first 6 weeks and then kind of supercharge that line when Ogunjobi comes back. He's looked apart. Like he's looked like somebody that in tandem with Ed Oliver could be scary. And then you start to throw in a little bit of Carter as well and taking a step in year 2. This is something that I think could be really good. And it was tackles for a loss today. Ray Davis, Ty Johnson, Frank Gore Jr., Darrington Evans. It didn't matter who they were going up against. They were affecting the run game when they were in the game together. And I want to make sure to shout them out.
Yeah, and I see in here a Carter sighting. I really feel like this has been a pretty good camp for him. He hasn't had any days where he's like dominated or taken over a practice like Ed Oliver did one day. But that's hard for a young player to do. I do feel like he's been in our notes almost every single day for blowing up a run or getting some pressure into the backfield. I've seen significant strides in growth in Carter's game from year 1 to year 2. Obviously, he's healthy now. A lot of his rookie season, you kind of flush it because of the wrist injury and what he played like after that wrist injury because it hampered his play significantly. But he might be one of my most underrated players of camp so far in terms of just how steady and solid he's been from day one on.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't been a home run training camp by him by any means, but also he's transitioning to a position where it's hard to really make that pop when you're not tackling, right? Like, so you're going to have to get some wins. You're going to have to get in the backfield. I thought he did that at a high level today. And I think Ogunjobi just shows you that, like, all right, get through the preseason here, put him on ice for 6 weeks, and then he's going to seamlessly transition. I like the more that I've thought about it, although I was pounding the table for a bigger bodied guy. And, you know, Deion Carter's in his own kind of bucket of that and what they're going to envision for him and how much he could potentially impact things in year 1. But I think getting a more diverse rotation at 3 technique is potentially going to be the magic potion to getting this defensive line more consistently affecting the quarterback in the playoffs, because you can't just now game plan for Ed Oliver. And last year at times, like, Deion Carter at 3 technique was the next wave of that rotation. I think going to Ogunjobi and then the third wave potentially being TJ Sanders and then any kind of combination of those guys on passing downs, 3rd and longs, is going to be very interesting with how they deploy this group and maybe even getting a little bit more creative with how you utilize Greg Rousseau and AJ Epinesa and where you can maybe push them inside a little bit.
Yeah, Bobby Babbitt's second season as defensive coordinator, but Sean McDermott's been here for a long time. You look at the personnel packages, the weight, the size, the height, wingspan, etc. The Bills now, I think, with the comfort level with their personnel, with this system, I think they can get very creative in terms of their alignments, given their opponent and the situations.
Spin says trade Deion Carter if you're going to use him as a 1 technique. Thoughts on that? And then there's somebody else saying amen, Spin, because we can have that conversation. The Bills are very deep in that room, right? Like, they have a lot of players, a lot of mouths to feed. I think a lot of people are excited about Deion Walker, maybe want him kind of catapulted in this season, but into that role. But you also have to kind of bake in the fact that, as good as he's looked at the start of training camp here, maybe he's not ready for that full backup role to Daquan Jones. And you're also banking on, Daquan Jones being an older kind of veteran player to be able to make the, play the same number of snaps that he did a season ago. So I think you want the numbers at this point, especially knowing that Ogunjobi's not going to be there for a little while. And I do think that Carter's got the versatility. We saw last year when he went out, the Bills took a serious hit to their numbers on the interior of the line. And that's something that I think that they've made sure to fix this offseason.
Yeah. I'm not looking to trade Carter in year 2. And the people in the comments, you're more than entitled to that opinion. I think that he does bring versatility. He's an important number in the grand scheme of things with Ogunjobi's suspension at the start of the year. I've seen a lot of growth in his game from year 1 to year 2. And one thing the Bills like, in addition to, obviously athleticism, they love smarts. And this guy is as intelligent as they come coming out of Duke. He's very smart in terms of digesting and understanding this defense, his scheme, where he needs to be on any given play. I know the undersized part of it is what some of you are talking about in the chat, but the Bills have traditionally gone undersized on their defensive line throughout Sean McDermott's tenure on the interior. So this is nothing new. Deion Walker's a little bit new to it because he does bring some good size to this defensive tackle position, but Carter doesn't stand out to me as being this extremely undersized player in the middle of the defense. When you looked at the history of who's been here, Justin Zimmer comes right to mind. And there's been many others too have been undersized, but efficient when called upon.
Sean McDermott gave an update on the interior offensive line. So Cedric Van Pran-Granger could be out as far as the Tampa Bay preseason game, maybe even a little bit after that. So now you're thinking about a guy who was the primary backup center last year, Alec Anderson, dealing with a knee injury. So he's kind of out of the mix right now. We've seen a couple of guys running in there, Jacob Bayer, Kendrick Green. Those are the two mainstays. I think Green's got a really good chance to make the team as the backup center at this point. I thought an interesting development today was the first time all of this training camp. We saw it a little bit last year, Tylen Grable working on the inside and finally showing some of his ability on the interior, playing at guard on the second team. That's not something we've seen a lot of. He's been primarily at tackle this training camp. And again, if you start to look down the line, Osiris Torrance is up next year and David Edwards is up, or Edwards is up next year, Torrance in 2 years. So this could be something to monitor, maybe Grable. If there's an injury on that offensive line, anywhere but center, I think Grable will probably be the first guy off the bench no matter where it happens.
And I love Grable's game. Grable, to me, can play tackle in this league, but the Bills have two really good ones with Deion Dawkins and Spencer Brown. So if he ends up being one of your best 5, 6, 7, 0 linemen, kick him inside to guard if an injury pops up, or if you can't extend David Edwards or Osiris Torrance in 2 years from now. He's shown a lot in a little time here. He really impressed me last year, winning the swing tackle job, coming in this summer, filling in really well at the tackle positions, with Spencer Brown being out at times, with Deion getting a vet rest day one day. He's shown that he can play at tackle, but he also has the versatility to play at guard, and they might need him there sooner than they would need him to be at that tackle position in meaningful games.
It's crazy to think about, knowing the summer that we went through last year and Cole Bishop's injury and what that cost him. And you start to think about how that could affect Maxwell Hairston, who's expected to be out probably until the start of the regular season. And you sit there and you look up and you go through the whole Max thing last week. And now not only is Cole Bishop not practicing with a quad injury, but now Taylor Rapp pops up today with a knee injury. And this is a guy that I've been on the record over the course of this offseason, as important as I think he is to this defense and how good I think he could be for this defense. He doesn't really stay healthy either. It's always kind of something popping up with him. Today, the Bills had to run with Damar Hamlin, and at times it was Cam Lewis. He was like the first one up. And then it was also Jordan Hancock, who seems to be settling in at safety more so than that slot corner position. How concerned are you as we sit here on August 3rd and we're talking about both safeties that the Bills want to probably have as their combo to start the season unavailable?
Extremely. If there's one position that I'm hitting the panic button on right now, it's that, because you look at a lot of these injuries and it's August 3rd. The regular season doesn't start for another month. But I worry about Rapp because of the history of injuries, and a lot of it has to do with the physical style that he plays with. This one injury, not so much. Bishop showed great growth over the spring in terms of his comfort level with the defense, being so vocal, looking like he was really comfortable. But availability is so important. And if you pop into those issues, you look down the line. Yes, Damar Hamlin has a ton of experience in this system. We know what his ceiling is, though, at this point in time, in my opinion. Derek Forrest, who, you mentioned it was kind of Cam Lewis that was in there, and Hancock. Forrest is kind of this great unknown. It's been a few years since he's had tape where he's had opportunities to play safety. What does he bring to the table? Lewis, I actually like Lewis's game a lot as a safety. I think in a pinch, he could fill in and do a pretty solid job, but that's not necessarily someone that you want in there long term, or if there's an injury, a week to week type of injury in season. And then Hancock, it's been a roller coaster ride, Matt. I mean, to be expected for a rookie, especially a rookie that they put a lot on his plate at the start of his career, trying him out at different spots and trying to get him comfortable and put a ton on his plate. He made a play today. He's made some plays lately, some pass breakups, but there's been some misses as well along these days at camp. So there's so much unknown behind the starters that I would be very concerned if either one missed significant time this year.
The problem with Hancock too is like you're going to have to showcase or show to the coaches that you have the system down, the communication parts of things down. And that to me is the most challenging part. You mentioned making plays, right? Like it's really good to be competitive at the catch point against KJ Hamler on a third down when the offense is running 2-minute drill and I don't know if it's necessarily even a pass breakup, but he almost intercepted the ball. I mean, he made a play on the ball. That's huge, right? Like to be able to have those moments and stack a couple of them, those moments over the course of training camp are big, but it's about being able to trust to put you out there. And if you can't, then it starts coming down to like, where does Forrest land on that? And I wouldn't be surprised as we move forward if Rapp and Bishop are still going to be out tomorrow and then into Wednesday and Thursday to close out camp, if we don't see a little bit more of Forrest kind of popping up in some of the first team situations, just to get a look at how it looks and how much more maybe elevated his levels of communication the defense are, because it's a race, right? For both of these guys,
right?
Forrest trying to figure out this system as well. He doesn't come from a Sean McDermott defense. I know he played for Ron Rivera in Washington, but probably some differences there, but he's a veteran and a little bit more, I think, able to download this thing. Or maybe Hancock's ahead of him, and maybe that's why Hancock gets pushed with a bigger opportunity with both of those guys out of the mix today.
Right. Maybe a hot take, maybe not. I don't play Taylor Rapp at all this preseason, whether he's healthy or not. I'm getting Cole Bishop significant reps if he's healthy to get him as many as possible. But then I'm throwing all these other guys into the fire because these are meaningless games in terms of who wins and who loses. But that's valuable tape for this coaching staff as they determine who's going to be the primary backups, who's going to fit into the scheme, who can we trust if an injury were to occur.
You can trust that you can get taken care of by visiting the Shout apparel store right now. We got everything that you need. Hit the description or the link in the description below. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you. Hit that like button and subscribe as well. But get yourself a new Shout t-shirt, Shout hat, any way you want to support the show. We got a great new logo over there, and they'll throw it on pretty much anything for you. We are coming out to Dorado. Wingnutz is coming out this Thursday night, August 7th. Make sure you get it into your calendar and sign up to become an insider. Hang out with us every day. Ask questions. Have conversation. Ryan, final thought.
Final thought. Yeah, Matt, you said it. Become an insider. We've been clearing out the chat every single day. Great conversations. Well worth the $3.99 a month.
All right, that'll do it for today. We'll be back tomorrow. You're going to want to log in tomorrow. Check out the show. It is a closed practice. So everything you need to learn about the Bills on day 10 of training camp, you find right here on Shout. For Ryan, I'm Matt. See you then. Take care, everybody.